Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Hush Blackwell, Bank of America, Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, Barbara and Peter Gattermeyer, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly, and our topics this week: no shortage of would-be successors to Mayor James. In Kansas gubernatorial politics, it's Democrat or Republican or Orman. In Alabama politics, it's more or no more, plus roast and toast. But we start with our Newsmaker segment and talk with economist Dr. Chris Kuehl from Armada Corporate Intelligence in Kansas City. We'll talk about the state of the economy as 2017 comes to a close and get Chris's economic forecast for the new year, both locally and nationally. It is always a pleasure to welcome Chris Kuehl back to Ruckus. Chris, good to see you again.
Good to see you, thanks.
I took a look at the interview I did with you in January of this year, 2017, and asked you about what the future held, and you said 2017 would be a good year. And I think you were absolutely right. Don't you agree?
I was. That doesn't happen very often, but I was.
Broadly speaking, and based on what you know now and what we can tell now, how does 2018 look, broadly speaking?
Pretty good. I mean, it's the job of an economist to find the dark cloud behind every silver lining. So I think what we'll see in 2018 is a lot of positive news and a little bit of potential negative. The positive is going to be a nice little spurt of growth that'll come from the tax bill. Kind of like a sugar rush. I mean, it's going to be really good for the first maybe half, 2/3 of the year. The concern is that it also might set up a little bit of an inflation spike towards the end of the year because it's coming at a weird time. We don't really need a stimulus right now. We're growing at 3% a quarter. Unemployment rates are very low. We're going to give the economy a boost, which may actually overheat it. So we're a little bit worried about the end of the year. But enjoy the first 2/3, it'll be great.
But the corporate tax cuts should really stimulate business, should it not?
It definitely will. And the question is, can they do as much with that money now as they might have been able to do 2
And what will they do with the money? It seems to be a question.
Yeah, it'll depend. Some of them will actually do what we hope they do. They're going to hire, they're going to buy machines, they're going to expand. Others may not. I mean, others will invest overseas, they'll squirrel it away, they'll buy stock. That's just the chances you take. It's not a done deal.
What about the repatriating of money from overseas? Is that going to happen?
I think it'll probably happen. It'll probably happen both with the tax cut and with some other proposals that are out there. The Delaney Amendment is still alive. That was trying to bring money back in exchange for a bond that you were required to invest in with some of that repatriated money. So I think one way or the other, we're going to get some of that money back.
Let me ask you about Kansas City overall. A couple of major projects will begin in 2018, the Downtown Convention Hotel and the billion-dollar KCI airport construction. Will they be meaningful in terms of the Kansas City economy and some growth?
I think they will be, particularly the airport. The airport allows Kansas City to compete more effectively with other cities that have modern airports. I fly a lot. I'm constantly in the air. And it has always been frustrating to deal with the KCI situation. It would be nice to be in the big leagues when it comes to that. The Downtown Convention Hotel just makes it easier for us to draw those big conventions.
Do you think the airport is important for Kansas City's image? I know you said you travel a lot, and I know you do. You talk to lots of people, lots of groups and organizations. Do people say to you things that are not flattering about the airport in Kansas City?
Yeah, unfortunately, I hear that quite a bit. People who are experienced flyers will just come back and say, wow, you know, I didn't think it was this old. And so it is the gateway. I mean, it's the first thing that most people see. It may be the only thing people see. When I travel, I don't know that I see any of these cities except their airport and hotel. So my whole impression of these towns is the airport.
In our January conversation, you said streetcars could be an important economic tool for Kansas City, but they have to expand to be meaningful. We hear a lot of talk about expansion, but thus far no expansion has occurred. Do you still have that same opinion?
I still have that feeling. They have done surprisingly well for the limited distance that it goes, but if it extends all the way to the plaza, you end up connecting the most important tourist areas of Kansas City along with an awful lot of people who will use it for work. So I'm all for extending it. It would be nice if that became part of the airport project too, but that may be too much to ask.
Wall Street has done very well. Maybe Donald Trump gets some credit for that. He thinks he does.
There certainly was in the beginning of the year.
And that's something we all know about.
Right.
We all invest in for the most part. Should we be confident that 2018 will be good to us on Wall Street?
I think we will. Trump got a lot of credit in the beginning, the Trump bump. Most of what has been driving our market has been foreign money, an awful lot of cash coming in from Europe, from Asia, because the options there have not been good. We will still see that money coming into the U.S. this coming year. It may start to taper off towards the end, but the situation that created that demand in the U.S. still exists.
Consumer confidence is high, unemployment low. We're actually having pretty good times.
We're having a pretty good time. Consumer confidence is up. You know, we're even actually putting our money where our mouth is, and we're spending it. And we're seeing inflation so far not a problem. Unemployment's very low. The biggest issue now is that companies can't find the people they want to hire.
Come back at the end of the year and we'll talk about 2018.
Sounds like a plan.
Great to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is economist Chris Kuehl of Armada Corporate Intelligence. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Attorney Laura McConwell is a former 3-term mayor of Mission, Kansas. John Stevens is head of Rock Hill Strategic. Sean Saving is a labor activist, part of the Heartland Labor Forum at KKFI Radio. And Woody Kozad is head of the Kozad Company, a government relations firm. Thank you all for coming in and giving up 30 minutes of holiday shopping time. We won't keep you long. We'll move on. Let's start with this. It is said when U.S. senators look into the mirror, they see future presidents. It might also be true that when Kansas City council members look in the mirror, they see future mayors. Kansas City Star editorial writer Steve Kraske says there are at least 8 people thought to be interested in the 2019 race to succeed Mayor Sly James. Most are council members, including Jolie Justice, said to be James' favorite, Quentin Lucas, Scott Taylor, Scott Wagner, and Jermaine Reed. Also thought to be in the running, State Representative Ryan Silvey, a Northland Republican, Crossroads businessman Phil Glenn, and attorney Stephen Miller. It is entirely possible there will be others. So when this campaign gets into full gear and voters have a chance to see the candidates up close and personal, what should they be looking for? What does Kansas City need, Woody, in its next mayor?
Well, it needs somebody who's worried about efficiency in city government and getting a hold on the city's debt. We have more people working in every department virtually of city government than other comparable cities have. And I'm sorry for all of you who, like I, love the fire department and the police department, but we have way more police department employees. I didn't say cops on the beat. Police department employees and way more fire department employees than other comparable cities of the same population and land area. So, but that goes throughout City Hall and has for as long as anybody can remember. Someday, someone ought to run for mayor and say, I'm going to make this place more efficient. The other thing is we have way more debt per capita than any comparable city, and the margin's huge.
Well, you'd like to have a Republican as mayor, and we don't seem headed for having a Republican as mayor.
As Mike Sanders, who's just got in some trouble, but was a great county executive, and Bill Wares have both said to me on occasion, I'm the best Republican county executive you guys ever had. So the Democrats do actually have people in their party who think the government ought to be efficient and effective and not too deeply in debt. We need to find somebody like that, because what we need is about 4 years of trying to pay down on what we've done already before we take another run.
Was there anybody in that group of 8 I mentioned who might fit Woody's description? Ryan Silvey, maybe, a Republican?
Well, I think Ryan Silvey would come in and lay out a plan like that. But I think many of them could. And I think you mentioned Mayor Sly's favorite, Jolie Justice. I certainly don't think Jolie would be a rubber stamp should she happen to be elected mayor.
She wouldn't be looking at cutting spending either, would she?
Not necessarily, I think, but she would look at balances. And I do think that to Woody's point, the city has to take on this issue of all of the benefits and unifying a lot of these expenses across these departments that have just gotten out of control.
Yeah, but Sean, mayors like to have big projects attached to their tenures. Like James had the $800 million bond issue, the downtown hotel, the new airport. What should he spend his remaining time working on?
Well, Barnes Header, Sprint Center. I still think the east side gets people talk about it, but nothing really ever gets done. There's some projects. They have the 8th cent, that was sales tax initiative.
Incentive zone.
There are some plans, but it doesn't seem to anything ever change over there. And I think if you really want to see revenues increase in this city, you've got to do something about the fact that half the city is dead broke.
Well, Scott Taylor, one of the proposed candidates, talks about reviving the East Side as his major campaign issue. Can we consider Mayor James to be successful?
I mean, I think he is. I knew him as a practicing attorney, and I think he well represents the people and gives the people a lot of love. And
but we look at projects he's achieved rather than savings that he's brought about.
He's landed a lot of projects, and sometimes it's sort of when you've had this time of a lot of spending and incurring of debt, you need to have it followed up by a time of let's make sure we get our expenses under control. But I also think we need to have a mayor that's going to be able to sort of work well with all of the council members, because it doesn't do Kansas City any good. It's not you're not going to move forward on your projects or on managing your debt if everybody's sort of fighting in a pissing contest.
I think you have to have someone that's savvy enough to understand too that you can tackle those issues that are not going to be on the front page, those spending issues, those efficiency issues, the staffing issues. But you also, we're a big enough metro, we're a big enough city. You need those big glamour. You need a glamour project. You need a project.
Well, we're not.
The east side,
a lot of
streetcar.
People that go around and look at, am I going to build a building here? Am I going to do something in this city? Let me say, in Mayor James' defense, I attack him enough. They will come into this city, and I know people who deal with them, and they will say, hey, things are going on here. This town has a pulse, and they will name other cities where there's nothing happening. Right. And look, James sets his own agenda. He has succeeded in achieving that agenda. Therefore, he is a success. He didn't achieve my agenda, but he didn't say he was.
Well, he functioned as a strong mayor might function in a system that is not a strong mayor. Strength of his personality, charm, wit,
but that's also probably
and enthusiasm.
Why it took a long time to get the airport done. Because of that. Because you got to work at the consensus, and I don't know that the next mayor is going to be successful just sort of driving stuff too. And Mayor Barnes, it took her a long time to get anything down at where the Sprint Center is. I mean, that didn't all happen until the second. Some of this stuff takes a long time to do.
Like talk about this issue, because we're now out of time for talking about this issue, and we'll move on. We have already met Greg Orman. He's from Olathe. He's wealthy. He ran for the U.S. Senate from Kansas in 2014 as an independent and lost. He wrote a book titled The Declaration of Independence, cute, and it now appears he's going to run for governor in Kansas next year. And of course, he plans to run as an independent. Orman claims the current political system is not working for the American people or for Kansans. Says Orman, the two major parties seem to care more about seeing the other party fail than they care about our country succeeding. Orman's views are described as fiscally conservative but socially liberal. Given all the chaos of the Brownback years in Kansas, is it possible, Laura, that Kansans may disregard party labels and embrace Orman's independence?
No.
In a word. No.
And I particularly watched the local elections that just moved. We had our first race in the fall of 2017, and even though those were all nonpartisan elections, everybody knows what everybody's party is. So, I mean, we don't need to kid ourselves. But I see that a lot of the Democrats are just going further left, and and then that there are Republicans who are right, and then you have people that are, I guess, I never really thought in terms of a moderate Democrat before, but you are finding people that have sort of the more traditional Republican values or Democratic values, and then people that are just on the opposite sides. Those folks are not going to cross at all. I mean, they're just not it's not going to happen.
It was interesting. You said even though it's a nonpartisan election, you know who's a Republican, you know who's a Democrat.
Pretty much.
So it kind of suggests there's not much sense in having a nonpartisan election.
Well, no, I do think it's important for local races to have
What's
that.
the benefit?
I think the benefit is the sort of the uneducated voter doesn't know, and so it gives,
doesn't care.
And some care, some don't care, and it gives the person the ability to go knock on doors and talk to them without getting labeled with a party label. And
Sean,
so I think it's important.
Sean, what does being an independent mean?
I just means you're fed up with both parties, but it doesn't mean you're not a liberal or a conservative. I mean, most independents are just people. They have partisan leanings. We already, people know this. I mean, there's very few that are truly independent, and those that are truly independent.
What would you say Orman is?
I don't know. He's a rich guy with an ego that thinks he can get.
So he's a Republican.
He got shellacked in 2014, and I'll give you that. And I didn't like his policies then. I don't know what he thinks he's doing now. I mean, if he wants to give Kobach the election, give governorship to Kobach, then he should get in the race.
Well, that's the theory that
clear.
if Orman gets in, he'll pull votes from the Democratic nominee, thus the Republican nominee. We assume Chris Kobach becomes governor.
And I think that's probably fair. But the other thing that just having been a local elected official. It just it amazes me all the people that look at United States Senate or Congress as a starter position for politics, and then so now we're working down.
There's
so
no
now
experience.
governor, and I mean that's a problem. Being a governor is a big is a big operation. There are a lot of things other than just out shaking hands and saying, we need to. Anyway, there's a lot more to it.
Well, you're running a budget. I don't know in Kansas, but I presume 10, 12.
Yes.
$13 billion. This is, you're exactly right. It's a huge operation. I told one candidate, you should be the first candidate to run on the platform that I'm actually going to be the chief executive. I'm going to run the state government, and make it work better.
And actually mean
at what it does.
Because that's what the executive does.
That's
and understand that
idea.
running a government is not the same thing as running a business.
No, it isn't.
It takes different skills, and there's different purposes for the two.
We're going to wrap this up. I want to ask John a question,
true.
though. Orman is described as fiscally conservative and socially liberal. Is it possible to be that?
Well, certainly it's possible to be that. Absolutely. And I think you hear many libertarians say that. You hear many independents say that. You hear.
So he could run as a libertarian.
Heck, the Democrats are saying
I think Democrats say it.
now.
I think moderate, Republicans who gain the nickname rhinos, many of them say it. I think, yeah, absolutely.
All right. One of the people whose articles I read said independents poll a lot better than they run. So the likelihood of an independent governor in Kansas.
The infrastructure in there.
Yeah.
No, exactly. All right, we'll move on. While Kansans have to wait a while before voting, voters in Alabama went to the polls earlier this week. It was a race to fill the U.S. Senate seat vacated by now U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions. The GOP nominee was former state Supreme Court Chief Justice Roy Moore, who faced allegations of sexual misconduct and assault from women who said Moore's violations occurred when they were teenagers. Moore steadfastly denied the allegations. GOP officials were divided over what the Alabama election would mean to the party. If Moore lost, the Republican majority in the Senate would be reduced. If he won, one conservative analyst said Moore would be the hood ornament of the GOP, and the Republicans should pray for his defeat. So the election was Tuesday. The power of prayer prevailed. What did voters actually say, more or no more? And we start with John.
Well, I think what voters said, it was not a national referendum by any stretch, but I think what voters said is when the Democrats put a clearly qualified superior candidate up against someone who has more flaws than you can count, and the Democrats run an actual legitimate ground game statewide, and that they can win anywhere. I think that that's what they said. Now, can they replicate that across the country? That is a big question.
Some analysts
Right.
see this as the beginning of the decline of the Republican Party in 2018. Do you believe that to be the case?
No. I don't think it's the rise of the National Democratic Party, the
No.
decline of the Republican Party. It's none of that, but it does show that Democrats can win anywhere when they
So
focus
I'm hearing
on
you
what
say
matters.
the same thing, Sean.
Well,
you don't
yeah, I
think
mean,
this is the decline of the GOP?
This is Alabama, and so anytime if the Democrats get a win there, they should celebrate that. I mean, this is a big deal. You still had almost 50% of the people in Alabama still vote for Roy Moore. So as a cultural situation, I don't think we've not established any real improvement. But the NAACP had a great ground game. They turned out black voters in record numbers, and if that can be replicated elsewhere in the country, then I think the Republicans should be scared. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know. But it serves the Alabama Democrats well for 2018 in some of the congressional races. I don't think he's Jones will
Moore
be
is
there
still
after
waiting for
2020.
the military votes to be counted. He has yet to concede the election.
Well, he was waiting for God, actually, I think, to
God
intervene
is
based on his
waiting.
comments.
The Moore controversy is part of the hashtag Me controversy that has arisen in recent weeks. That's where prominent media and political figures are embarrassed and forced to leave their jobs if they're accused of sexual harassment, whatever that may be defined as being. Will the Moore loss enhance the Me Too movement?
You know, it may or may not, but there are so many other reasons why I think Roy Moore lost that particular election than him being a 30-year-old district attorney chasing teenagers. I mean, that's to me that's a problem. I don't and more importantly, I don't want that kind of drama in a United States Senate. Which, if we want the Senate to get things done, we do not need this kind of personality sideshows in the U.S. Senate. They've got important business to do. I mean, they're there to figure out how to balance our budget and do our taxes and do all these other things. And this sideshow needs to go. And I'm hoping
I guess
it
the
goes.
sideshow includes the 100 or so Democrats calling on President Trump to resign because of his alleged sexual misadventures. Would he?
Well, James Farley was wrong. Money is not the mother's milk of politics. Hypocrisy is. And watching my fellow Christian conservatives support Judge Moore because, after all, he's pro-life, and then listening to the outrage from the people who fought in the last boudoir to defend President Clinton's right to get fellatio in the Oval Office because, after all, he was pro-choice. If humor is the best medicine, these people have added 5 years to my life. It's just the whole thing is a mockery. I'm with you. I mean, we're the world's only superpowers. Well, we're not, because the Chinese are, but we're one of the world's 2 superpowers, and this is what we come up for the United States Senate.
Are men being treated fairly in this Me Too, hashtag Me Too state of the world, where an accusation is almost the same thing as guilt? And men have little chance to defend themselves. Perhaps their situation is indefensible. I don't know.
I think that's more of the issue. For so many years, I think women in the workplace, women in politics, women in a lot of positions have not been treated fairly, have inherently been treated unfairly. So there might be certainly some men that are maybe wrongfully accused or the pendulum swings too far. I think this is way overdue to have this reckoning. And it's time, and we need.
This is not a witch hunt, but it is a lynch mob. But sometimes the lynch mob hangs the right guy.
Warlock hunt, somebody called it.
Right.
Now we head to the soapbox for Roast and Toast, where the Ruckettes have 30 seconds each to give a cheer or offer a sneer to people and events in the news, and we start with Woody.
Well, speaking of that lynch mob, before you get all head up and join it, you might pause and contemplate this. That for as long as anybody can remember, and I mean back before World War II, more people met their future spouses in the workplace than in any other nexus of their lives. So if there isn't going to be any hanky-panky on the job, you're probably not going to have any grandchildren.
John?
I have a roast for the Shawnee Mission School District. After Jim Henson's tenure, where there was so much questions about his actions and lack of transparency, They had an opportunity to move on and celebrate all of the great successes of their district. Instead, the school board continues, the staff continues to have a lack of transparency, a lack of openness, and a lack of public input that I find troubling in a district that should have many celebrations of success to share versus problems.
Sean.
Well, I'm going to break the rules a little bit, I think, and do both a toast and a roast. Because the toast has to go out to the black women of Alabama who turned out in record numbers and voted nearly unanimously to basically say, enough is enough. This is the floor. We cannot go any lower than this. But oh, the white men of Alabama, you get a roast. I'd like to give you more, but this is public television, so Neil Young was right about you.
Thanks for your restraint. Laura.
Well, my roast is to sore losers. Voters speak, we move on, and I'm not just talking about our recent election on Tuesday, but just in general. After an election's done, someone wins, someone loses, and we need to move on to work together. And the loser, I think that just defines a whole lot of character, what we see happens after you lose an election. So I roast these sore losers.
All right, and finally, in a New York theater last week, a service dog broke loose from its human companion during the show, ran to the stage, apparently in pursuit of one of the actors. An usher corralled the dog, calmed him down, and returned him to his owner, and the show went on. No one's sure what upset the dog. By the way, the show was Andrew Lloyd Webber's classic, Cats. And that is Ruckus for this week. We're back next Thursday at 7. To our Jewish friends and viewers, Happy Hanukkah. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, Mike Shannon saying thanks very much for watching and good night.